Hello there. It is hot, hot, hot. It's 31 degrees outside, if not even hotter. So there we go. We soldier on. Not quite as hot, though, as our scorchingly important podcast today. I met with repeat Campcast guest Mr. Vova, Vladimir Pavlovich, from Advanced English for Exams. Vova is a well-known teacher, linguist, fantasy literature enthusiast, an online ESL personality extraordinaire, and a practitioner of the dark Bulgarian magic arts. I think that Vova needs little more introduction than that. We talk about all manner of things today about obviously English. We talk about the royal family. We talk about textbooks and textbook authoring because Vova is turning his attention to authorship of various sacred texts and spell books, and indeed English language textbooks. So I hope you enjoy the show. And and one more thing I forgot to say almost. There's going to be more Technical Tuesday animated coming out soon. Our first cartoon got lots of positive response, so thank you very much for that. There's going to be a couple of regular Technical Tuesdays with the good old text and an MP3 recording on the Campfire page, and then there's going to be some more cartoons going up on the YouTube page fairly soon. So if you like short, humorous cartoons about language, then that's the place for you to be. Hashtag Technical Tuesday, check it out. Okay, hope you enjoy the show. All right. If we're all good to go, just wave your fringe out of your forehead. Okay. 3, 2, 1. And welcome to at least someone who is in my top 3 favorite Bulgarians, Mr. Vova. Hello.
Why just top 3? Hello.
Well, I didn't say 3.
Who am I competing with?
You're definitely,
right?
first of all, you're competing with Vanga, definitely.
Okay.
No, I'm joking. Of course, I'm no fan of Vanga and of her. A lot of people say like, oh, she predicted 9/11, and then if you actually go and listen to what she predicted,
and what she didn't predict it.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, yeah. Where's coronavirus? Where's where was the prediction about anything in the modern day? But it's so vague. It's this kind of like Nostradamus type thinking, where what she actually predicted was American brothers. I'm translating from Bulgarian now. American brothers will fall under birds of steel. Okay, think about that. Now, my suspicion is that when she said that in 1980, whatever, she was clearly thinking of a plane shooting a bomb dropped from a plane on America, right? That's clearly what she was thinking of. But it just so happened that because American brothers, oh my God, that's like the Twin Towers. Okay, but it could have been actual brothers. It could have been soldiers. It could have been like just citizenry. Or it could have been 2 buildings, sure. Bird of steel. Okay, could be a plane, sure, could be a helicopter, could be a bomb, could be an actual bird. I mean, it's just if you after the I don't know why I'm trying to explain all this. I'm assuming that you're not a fan of your compatriots, but
no, not really. No, not really.
Yeah, you leave fantasy and fairy tales where they belong in fantasy books.
I don't consider that to be fantasy. That's just bull art.
Bullshit.
Yeah. Language. I'm meeting my mom today, so I'm not allowed to use bad words.
How's your mum's English? Oh yeah, your mum does speak English, doesn't she?
Well, very, very broken English, I'd say, but still she knows a couple of words.
Oh, hang on.
For example, bull art. Yeah. No, my gran is an English teacher.
Ah, that's it. Yeah. I remember now. It's all coming back to me. So, new background.
Oh yeah, I'm moving around.
Is that to avoid kidnappers or just?
No, this very room has an air conditioning.
Excellent. But hang on, where are you? You're in Tyumen now, yeah?
Yeah, I'm in Tyumen.
Okay. Why the move? If it's not a secret.
Well, it is not a secret. I was commuting a lot, just three times a week. I think I had to go to Tyumen, and then it just hit me. Why do I go to Tyumen if I can live there? And just in 3 hours after that, being an absolutely whimsical person, acting on a whim, I just got a flat in Tyumen. I got my keys, and since then I've been living here. Not the smartest decision of mine, but it's still a decision. Yeah.
Where are you living?
Well, I don't really know whether our listeners know this stuff. It's not far away from Crystal. That's a shopping mall.
Okay, nice. So you've got lots of shops nearby, and you're not too far away from the actual edge of the city, so you can go out to the forest or go gathering mushrooms or flowers or whatever it is you want to do in the forest. I don't know. I won't ask.
Okay, never, but okay, I can do that.
Well, I can see you've got your plastic tree all set up behind you, so you've got.
No, that's a real one. Can you imagine that? That's a real one. I thought it was not.
I can imagine. I'm surprised actually, and you're keeping that alive with no help.
Yeah, it's three months already.
Well,
I had my doubts first. But then it started blooming.
Is bearing some sort of fruit? Is it? What is that?
No, it's just like it's blooming. It's like flower or something. It will fall tomorrow, I think. Yes.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to that. So, for anyone who can't tell from the massive pot of coffee I've got on my desk and my slightly deeper than usual voice, because we've both only just woken up. Granted, it's 7 o'clock in the morning for me. What time is it for you?
It's 11.
It's 11, and you've only just woken up as well. So we have such identical lifestyles. But yeah, thanks once again for agreeing to do this on your day off, because I know it is work for you, but still, we can work and have fun at the same time, right?
Well,
speaking of fun, let's talk about diplomas. I saw recently you've ordered a bunch of blank diplomas. Are you starting up some sort of diploma forging website, or is this for legitimate purposes?
Not only that. So the first thing I did after getting our license, so we got a license recently. The first thing I did was to make a diploma as if I was a real graduate from Hogwarts. So done that.
Certified by the Ministry of Education of the Russian Federation.
Yeah, I thought that this day would come, and it did. So the thing is that our dear listeners, never give up, never give in. Just wait, and your owl will bring your diploma sooner or later, even if you're 30 or something. Right? Just wait for it. But on the serious note, yeah, now we're changing. We are changing our programs. We're changing our curriculum, changing a lot of things, because since we got this, we're certified now. It means that there must be some changes. For example, we can't just beat around the bush and do things which we just like doing. Because after all, now we have like a real program, and we must follow it. With a real number of hours devoted to that topic, changing something, then exams and credits will come. So on the one hand, it is quite beneficial for our students, of course, because after all, they will not get just a certificate which they can throw away tomorrow. That would be like a real legitimate document. On the other hand, it will require a bit more work, right? Because since we have credits, it means that just to move forward, you need to get enough credits. Yeah.
So your organization went from, what were you before? Norchuda? The classification of your company, I mean.
No. We started with IP actually.
Okay.
Right? So then it was like this limited company.
Okay.
Right. And now we are non-profitable organization.
Please don't translate. Just what's the abbreviation?
That's Anno Depot. So we give, if it helps, right? If it helps. So it means that we give additional professional education. So it's not just additional education, because it is not that difficult to get that accreditation, right? Because the only thing you need to have is just to have a toilet, right? If you have enough toilets in your school, then you can have a license. The one we have, it means that we have to base our curriculum on different programs which exist in Russia. So, for example, we're launching this program for English teachers, meaning like this retraining schemes. So imagine that you were, let's say, an accountant, and now you want to become an English teacher, and now you can come to us and we'll teach you how to do that.
And so is that going to be like something like CELTA, but a bit more thorough, or a bit less thorough?
Well, it's different. It's different because CELTA is a typical TESOL certificate, right? TESOL certificate is just 1 hour or 120 hours. It can be a bit more than that, but technically speaking, just a certificate. When it comes to Russian system of education, that would be удостоверение, which is not like a real thing. You can't get a job with удостоверение because technically speaking, it's just nothing. To get a qualification, you need to have at least 240 hours. So on the one hand, we will give more hours than CELTA gives, but on the other hand, however, we need to understand that CELTA is a face-to-face course, right? You study there, well, it's a huge melting pot where you learn a lot of things just because you're there.
And you do like observed hours and that sort of thing.
Of course, online it will be difficult to do, even though now we have this online CELTA. It's still different. We'll have more theory, so it will help a lot of those people who prepare for, let's say, Delta Module 1 or TKT, so more theoretical part. And of course, we'll have this typical subjects everyone needs to have when they study languages at the uni, such as like lexicology, the history of the language, and other stuff. So, but that's a must. That's the thing when it comes to this professional, well, this retraining scheme. We can't come up with a program just like off the top of our hand without even thinking. No, we need to base it on something which will exist in Russia, and for that we'll have just two majors. That would be linguistics and teaching training universities we have in Russia. So there are just two majors. And when we designed our program, we had to think about those two.
It's exciting times, Congratulations, because I know that you've been going through this process for a long time. You were talking about this a year ago.
Yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, congratulations, because I know how much of a bureaucratic nightmare it is. Even like registering my motorbike with a British passport in Russia was a nightmare. So I can only imagine how much bigger and more of a ball ache this sort of, can I say ball ache? Is that going to anyone?
Yeah. Well,
okay, cool.
Yeah,
I don't know if that counts as a swear word. Yeah, Vova's mum is coming over today, so I've been instructed not to use any swear words. Although she's not in the room right now, right?
No, of course not.
She's not. Okay, right. In that case, I might be quite liberal with my language. Yeah, congratulations. And don't you feel though that, like, don't you want like some sort of, I don't know, creative outlet? Like, because I know that you're obviously quite a creative person. Correct me if I'm wrong, but having to follow like a one program and obey the dear leader that is the the Ministry of Education, don't you want some sort of, I don't know, sideline or something where you can develop your own programs and not have to worry about outside supervision?
No, it's still slightly different. The thing is that they give us the list of subjects, but when it comes to English, we understand that they teach English everywhere, but the syllabus is different everywhere. So we still have a lot of freedom. We can do pretty much anything we want. We can use different books. We can write our own materials. And I wouldn't consider that to be constraints of any sort. It just gives some guidance. Because after all, even when it comes to this Ministry for Education, and we say these words we pronounce these words with a smile, we still understand that there were a lot of very educated people who work there, right? Meaning that what they came up with years ago is valid simply because, well, look at me, right? I speak English, and I think that my English is not bad just because I studied in the uni. So what they came up with was not bad. And of course, there are some things which we can change because time flies, and there are some things which did not really we did not really stand the test of time. We still understand that even though some things may change, the core is more or less the same.
Sure. And yeah, I agree with you in principle that it's, it is important to bring forward things from the past which make sense and to keep those in place rather than just wrecking the whole system. But don't you
sound like Umbridge now.
Don't you do yourself an injustice. I think that you speak English despite your time at university, not because of it. Do you really think that? Do you really think that your English is because of your university studies? Because I think that someone who will do well linguistically will do well pretty much independent of where they study, and vice versa. Someone who's not a natural language learner, and I hate to use that phrase natural language learner, but I'm sorry, it is a thing. Some people are born with more of a mathematical brain or more of an analytical brain. That happens, and it's annoying. It's a genetic lottery, or not only genetic, of course, it's an environmental lottery. Were you socialized as a kid? Did your parents show you different linguistic materials or try and speak with you in a different language when you were growing up? And of course there is the genetic component as well. And of course, good quality education comes into it, but I don't think you really think that. I don't think that you think that your English is, if not solely, a majority result.
Well, of course not. Of course not, but it did help.
Sure.
That would be a lie if I said something like, I was I took to it like a duck to water. It was super easy for me. Well, it was not difficult. But learning thousands of words, doing thousands of grammar exercises, of course it helped. I hated that so much. And there are quite a few things which I still hate. But looking back and going down this memory lane, I still understand that there were quite a few things which were effective. And these are the things we don't use anymore. For example, dictations. Right now we don't really use the dictations with our students. However, like 10 years ago, that was a thing. And I think that that's a very good technique to practice spelling, writing, pretty much anything. Well, listening even.
When Russians say dictation, I've always wondered this, because when we say dictation, we mean someone reads a text and you write down the entire text. But as far as I've understood, when Russians say dictation, they mean either that or what we would call a spelling test, where the teacher reads out individual words.
I meant both. I meant both, because we had both. So we had the spelling tests, of course, where the teacher, and normally that would be this grammatical approach, right? So the teacher would give us the Russian word and we were supposed to write it in English. And then, of course, there were just texts, and there was either the recording or the teacher would read the text and we would write it down. And not only that, since, well, you studied in Russia, so you know our system, we had the subject which is called phonetics, right? And meaning that not only did we practice sounds, but we also learned different the signs which we use in transcription. So, and more often than not, the teacher would read the text and we would, give a transcription of this text, not just like real words.
That's a good point, actually. And it's not only linguists that can do that. I was very pleasantly surprised when I came to Russia and people started asking me, can you please write the transcription on the board? I'm like, you guys can read this? And I didn't realize, like, just regular people who work as accountants and engineers, they can read IPA. The International Phonetic Alphabet, which is which is not common, because you try going to Spain or France and teaching English and writing phonetics on the board, they'll be like, what the hell is this? And yeah, the fact that Russians study a lot of grammar at school is also, that makes teachers' lives a lot easier, because you can just go ahead and start talking about adverbs and prepositions and pronouns, you can go ahead and start talking about voiced and unvoiced consonants, and the Russians will instantly understand what you're talking about. Not always, but a nice test that I often use for voiced and unvoiced consonants is I get people to put their hands on their Adam's apple, and I say, go say v, and you can feel it vibrating. So that's a voiced consonant, and anything like a t or a p, which is made not with your larynx, but simply by manipulating air across your teeth and across your lips, you won't feel your Adam's apple vibrating. And that's a nice little test, and people tend to remember it like that. So if there's any phonetic people out there, then there you go. Yes, yeah, I do take your point, and sometimes it is nice to be able to, because this is my whole hang up with the lexical approach, for example. Like, I really enjoy just being able to get under the bonnet of language and just to really go into detail and go down, grammatical or indeed phonetic rabbit holes, and to really get to grips with how things are working in the engine of language, which I don't think you always get an opportunity, even if that rabbit hole or that investigation doesn't help you with your language. I just find it deeply interesting in principle, right? And I don't think you always get the chance to do that with a heavily lexical approach. I don't know, what's your whole take on that? Lexical versus...
I think that we've picked a very dangerous path now, right?
Uh-oh.
Very dangerous path. Okay, I'll try to mince my words. Well, it depends. It depends on what we want to get. If we teach an elementary student, they don't really need to know that as is, let's say, a suffix in present simple. They don't need this knowledge. They don't need to know that let's say retake and re is like a prefix. They don't need it. So they don't need this deep knowledge of grammar. However, when it comes to higher levels, and when we teach them different stuff, such as word formation, when we teach them punctuation, when we teach them different patterns, such as participle clauses or relative clauses, of course you can explain them. There is a chunk. Like Bob, who lives next door, is my friend. Yeah, that's a beautiful chunk. However, you will never explain them the punctuation without deep explanation of what a relative clause is, what is a defining clauses, what is a non-defining clauses, and what the difference between the two is. Because when we go to, let's say, upper intermediate, advanced, and proficiency, and when we look at the language from a slightly different perspective, not as a means of communication, because I think that starting from B2, it is not really about speaking anymore. I can speak already at B1. I can watch films, I can communicate with different people, I can spell out pretty much anything I want to, and I can easily get my message across without any thinking. Of course, there are going to be some words I don't know, but well, come on, everyone has a Google. Yeah, I mean, this Google dictionary or something, so they can Google the word, but they need it. When it comes to B2, C1, and, well, God forbids proficiency, it's not really about the language anymore, right? It is more about the depth of the language, right? When we look at the words, we look at the grammar pattern, because, of course, a lot depends on the vocabulary. The importance of the vocab is undeniable. If you are late to the airport and you don't know the word plane, late, taxi, then you'll probably find yourself in a very difficult situation. But come on, at C2, or even a bus, right? Yeah. So come on, at C2, you know these words. If you don't know of the words, I don't know, pan, you will use different words to explain what you mean. Probably it will sound clumsy, but still you'll get your message across easily and people will understand you. However, more often than not, at higher levels, grammar mistakes impede communication. Right? You don't really understand what is happening because, for example, poor tenses order. So you can get the meaning just because you're a teacher and you understand what they meant. Yeah. However, it always sounds a bit off key, and at times you can't even put your finger at it, but still it's still there.
Yeah, I agree with one addition that I've always thought that, and so I agree with what you were saying in your initial remarks about sort of elementary students, that when you have like a list of vocabulary or something at elementary, very often you'll have, in principle, lexical chunks. So you'll learn, like, phrases with I don't know, phrases with get or go, for example. Go to the post office, go to the park. And even something like an article or a determiner. You learn some bread and an apple, and you don't need to teach people at that level that bread is uncountable and apple starts with a vowel sound, and we say to the park because it's this preposition and it's that grammar structure. You don't need to teach all that. You can just teach it as a chunk. And so the lexical approach just says, okay, let's just take that principle and run with it for the entire journey. But then what you're saying is that, and I think that does work. I think that does work right up until about intermediate. And then I don't know. I think, I think a blended approach is always the best, right? By definition, because who knows what works? Is there any, what is the scientific evidence that shows that, the lexical approach or the communicative approach is the superior method? I haven't seen any scientific evidence to back that up. And I'm not saying that there's no evidence. I'm just saying I haven't seen it. So yeah, one has to be careful whenever one posits that they've got the method or, the secret source to learning language.
Yeah, I think it's a combination. It's always a combination, right? And I think that most teachers out there, they combine all of those approaches without even thinking about them.
Intuitively, yeah, sure. Yeah.
It just happens. For example, of course, when it comes to teaching conditionals, they will give some samples first, right? You will try to, I don't know, you can give them a text where these conditionals will be used, and then students will understand those patterns intuitively, right? And they will understand what they mean. But then still, I don't know, 90% of them would ask you for this scheme, right? So what do we have after if? Is it past simple? Is it past perfect? Why is that? And it just happens. With lower levels, of course, it's much more fun to teach them saying something like, I've been practicing playing chess for quite a while. And then they can say, I've been practicing, I've been doing, and they don't really understand that it's present perfect continuous, but they can say it. Then further down the track, that can impede their progress if it's just solely chunks. Okay? If we're just using chunks and only chunks.
That's one of the problems with it. That because there is definitely some sense in this lexical business, because it does mirror how people learn languages naturally, because that's how you learned Russian or Bulgarian or whatever your native tongue is. Your Mordor. What's the language of Mordor?
I think it's Mordor.
Just Mordorian. Yeah. Moldova. Sorry to anyone listening in Moldova. I meant no disrespect.
We didn't mean that.
I do actually have listeners in Moldova, by the way, according to my data. Well, I don't know, because when I look at the podcast data, there's like people in Singapore listening, people in the Caribbean listening, Trinidad and Tobago. I'm like, is that people, are those people in Trinidad and Tobago listening, or is that a Russian guy with a VPN? So I don't know which it is. Probably the latter, but yeah. But what I was saying earlier was that I think that this curve of the language learning journey, where you start at elementary talking about what are basically lexical chunks, like go to the shop and buy some bread and blah, blah, blah. Then when you get a bit more in depth, you start learning these structures. You start looking at from the ground up. Okay, how do we make these structures? How do we make these tenses? How do you choose which article or which determiner or which preposition to use? What are the rules, and how, or, vaguely speak, because a rule is a problematic concept, as we well know. And then when you get to something approaching CAE, CPE, that is to say advanced proficiency level, then weirdly, it kind of goes back in the other direction, and you don't focus so much on grammar structures. You focus more on patterns and word formation and collocations and idioms and common phrases. And a lot of what you're doing, if you open like a CAE book or a CPE prep book, a lot of the time it's just sets of collocations, and not much more, right? Because realistically, if let's say that you've got a group of CPE students, or I'm teaching a class or whatever, and I just say to Ivanov, you need to go and work on your future perfect, and he'll say, okay, got it, and he can just go and do that, right? And I can say, Petrov, you need to go and look up this particular rule because you're making a lot of mistakes with it. Okay, and he can just go and do that, and I don't need to spend time coaching it in the classroom. That would be a waste of everyone's time. And then if they want to come to me afterwards and clarify something, then we can do that. But typically, if it's a high-level class, I spend zero time drilling grammar in a class. Am I mad, or what do you think?
Yeah, well, of course, at CE proficiency, we don't really teach grammar, unless it's something small, like subjunctives, for example. That's the thing. We will practice, yeah. Subjunctives, probably conditions, especially mixed conditions.
It's a good idea for Technical Tuesday. I'm going to do a subjunctive. It's a very outdated term, that subjunctive. You don't really hear about it in modern English teaching. But maybe I should bring it back, because obviously you do hear about it in sort of linguistics, but I don't know, have you ever seen the term subjunctive used in a grammar book?
Yeah, a lot.
No, I mean as in like a class book.
Oh yeah, for example.
Oh really?
Well, expert proficiency, I have it in front of me. Yeah,
you've got it in front of you. I know, some bedtime reading. Okay, I take it back then. I take it back. Because whenever I
all of these phrases, like suffice it to say, they would teach you at this level, these phrases.
Yeah. Because anytime that I've seen subjunctive taught in a book, whether it's English file upper intermediate, or whether it's something like a CPE prep book, it's always been subjunctive, but masquerading as something else. So for example, when we learn like second conditional, that basically is subjunctive, and then anything else we just put in a box marked set phrases, like be that as it may, suffice it to say, as you just said now,
God save the Queen, yeah,
for example. Yeah. Long may she live, although I don't know how long she's got. Although having said that, when Phil sadly popped his clogs and moved on to the underworld, I thought that, okay, this is it, Liz is going to be in a really terrible state afterwards, but she was okay. A few days later, she's
I think that she is a very strong woman.
Yeah,
and she is for very, very many people, it's difficult to imagine the numbers. I think that she's a symbol, right? And she knows that she is a symbol. And I hope that she'll live forever, though of course that will never happen, but I hope that she'll have many, many, many years ahead of her.
Yeah, long live the Queen.
Because she is the symbol, right? So we're not really talking about the monarchy anymore. We're talking about her, right? Do you really know much about her children, grandchildren? Well, about grandchildren, of course, due to this scandalous situation which happened just the other day. But technically speaking, all of them are in the dark. We don't really know about them. But she's there.
I know a thing or two, but yeah, sure, not as much as I would know about the Queen. But Princess Anne came to our school. Did I ever tell you that?
No, never.
Yeah, we were opening a new sports center, and she came and opened the school. It was pretty cool. She walked past with all of her bodyguards, and she was gone in 5 seconds, and that was it. That was my brief encounter with royalty.
Still, you saw the royalty. Yeah, that's
first and last time they ever let me near a princess. But yeah, and then the sports center is named the Princess Royal Sports Complex in honor of her. But yeah, this is an interesting thing, and I was listening to a podcast with, I don't remember who, but Stephen Fry was on it, and he was talking about this, how it's really interesting to note that, so you know, if you look at it logically, a monarchy, a constitutional monarchy, is a ridiculous thing. It is illogical, undemocratic, and old-fashioned, right? But then, if you look at some of the most prosperous, happiest countries on earth, the Scandinavian countries, Spain, Portugal, Belgium, whatever. Is Belgium a monarchy? I don't know. I might be wrong about that. The Netherlands, certainly. Dare I say it, the UK. All of those countries, of course, have their problems and our problems, but that they are by no means tin pot dictatorships. And some of the countries on the other end of that spectrum, I often say the longer the name of the country, the dodgier it is. People's Freedom Republic of what it's the same with banks, right? If you have like Surgutneftegas Bank, then I don't trust that bank as much as I trust Sber. Having said that, I come from a country called the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, so I'm full of shit. Sorry, Vola's mum. But what I'm trying to say is that it seems illogical and undemocratic, and if the monarchy were to disappear tomorrow, I would be upset, but I'd be the first person to say, okay, that's reasonable, it was time. But I think there is something to be said for, let's call it to use your phrase, a symbolic branch of government, right? So we've got the parliamentary branch of government, and we've got the symbolic branch of government. One of my critiques of because think about America, right? America's foundation was a revolutionary one. They were throwing off the shackles of frankly the tyranny of the British Empire. And fair enough. They may regret it, I'm sure. And if they do want to come home, just let us know, and we'll bring you back in. But I've often felt very sorry for the president of America, because they are at the same time the symbolic leader, the military leader, and the parliamentary leader. That's a lot of leadership, and this instinct that we have to direct our devotion and worship, and I hate to use that phrase, God-shaped hole, but there is something to it. That doesn't just disappear. Have you seen how the Americans are with their flag? It's creepy. Have you seen how they lower the flag and they fold it up and they do the whole ceremony? They treat that flag like it's some sort of sacred artifact, right? We don't need that, because we've got Her Majesty, we've got the crown, we've got the Queen, we've got we've got Buckingham Palace, and that sort of symbolic. What I'm trying to say is that the monarch acts like a lightning rod for this instinct that we have for leadership, for hero worship. Okay, now when that instinct is directed towards someone who has actual power, that's when you get dictatorships. I'm not going to name which country I have in mind, but I think you can see where I'm going with this.
No, we're being recorded, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
I've already offended Moldova. I'm not going to offend anyone else. But I think there's something to that. And all of this hero worship is directed at an impotent leader. The Queen has no real power. And that's a pretty neat solution, I think. And I think we should be careful.
I think it's not only about that. I think it's about cultural heritage. I think it's about cultural identity. It's about roots, about history, about remembering what you used to have, right? And even though there were some hints on the country whose name finishes with Federation, right, and the president of this country, I still think that there are quite a few leaders out there who we support. Well, not me personally, but a lot of people support. For example, religion, right? Because you can be far from church, but everyone knows who the patriarch is. Everyone would discuss him, and for many people, he would be their role model. So I think that in different countries, even though they don't have a monarch. They still try to find some other symbols. So there can be the leader, the national leader of the country, right? But then you'll have some other people, right? And that is why in this very country, I think the government supports the church a lot. They don't really want to fight with the church.
Yeah,
because
that's
after all, a lot of people still support it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And so again, to use America as an example, you know, America has in its constitution that there's supposed to be a brick wall between church and state. Church has no business telling the state what to do, and vice versa, which sounds like a really logical, rational thing to put in your constitution. But and then so conversely, the Queen is the head of the Church of England. Okay? The church and state are inseparable in the UK. The UK is one of the most secular countries I've ever been to. Almost everyone I know is atheist, or at least secular. No one knows anything about religion, about the history of religion. It is a very secular country. Look at America. I don't need to tell you the rest of that sentence. I mean, they're fanatics. That, you know, hardly anyone believes in evolution, and they think that, you know, we should ban Darwin from schools, and that, you know, that people believe in angels and all of this nonsense. And yeah, I think Russia's closer to Britain in that way, that there is this church and state are obviously very closely related in Russia as well.
I think it's even now it's even a part of the constitution. They changed the constitution I think it was a year ago. I can be mistaken because time flies. And now the word God is used in the constitution. So according to Russian law, God is real.
Well, thanks Russia for that discovery.
Yeah, and that's constitution. So no law can, I don't know, object it anyhow because it's part of the law. Yeah, like the national law.
And no one can change it unless it's a referendum. Yeah. The only thing I would say, the only critique I have of that union of church and state is that whereas I think the Queen is a fairly unifying figure. Of course, there are those who are opposed to the royal family, and you know, for good reasons. I understand why. The only thing I would say is that not everyone in Russia is Christian, and that's kind of a problem, right? You know, what about the Muslims, and what about the Buddhists, and what about the you know, the pagans, if there's any pagans left? I don't know. So it's not super duper unifying. That's the only thing I would say.
But at the same time, well, I see where you're coming from. At the same time, we don't use like the Orthodox God is the only God who exists. I mean, in the constitution, there is the word God, and for everyone, this God can be different, right? One may think that that would be a computer, right? If we read this American Gods book, so it can be anything. So, and the thing is that our government tries to be friends with pretty much everyone. So with I think with the Orthodox Church, with the Catholic Church, with Muslim Church. Is it a church? Can I say Muslim Church religion? Yeah, because it is not really a church now.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things about Islam, is that it's, you know, there's not the sort of there is like a codified basis like in the Quran and the Hadith, but there's no sort of, you know, so to speak, canonical central committee, which you know, there's no sort of authority like there is in Catholicism or in Eastern Orthodoxy, which is yeah, make your own conclusions.
But still, they're friends with them, and more often than not, I think at least once a year, maybe once in 2 years, you can see the national leader talking to them. So all of the leaders of all of these churches would come together to the Kremlin, and they would talk. Right, that's something you can't really imagine happening, I think, pretty much anywhere around the globe.
Well, there are other countries I could imagine that happening, but the guest list might be slightly less diverse, let's say. Okay, let's get on to the elephant in the room, shall we? You've recently gone public with so I got a very privileged sneaky peek of your upcoming book that you've been working on, or at least I don't know how far along you are in the book writing stage, but suffice it to say subjunctive. Suffice it to say you have been working on a course book. What's that all about?
Well, I'm not alone, right? So I think that, well, that's one of those things why some people consider internet to be a god or something, because just because of this internet, because of the communities we have, we meet a lot of important people. So, and a couple of months ago, maybe a month ago, I'm really, really bad at when it comes to time. We had this webinar with Susan from Skills for Exams.
Shout out to Susie.
I wouldn't call her that myself.
I call her Susie Q, I call her.
Okay. So the thing is that we discussed two major sources. We discussed expert books and upstream books, and we compared them. And while comparing the books, we both of us noticed that at the end of the day, everyone has to change the book so that it meets the needs of these of that teacher, or these of that lesson, or these of that purpose of the lesson. And after that very webinar, it hit us. We understood that probably just for the sake of our summer courses, to start with, we can consider something bigger than just using a book, like be it expert, I don't know, stream, on screen, you name it. Can be anything. So we came up with this idea of creating our own course book, and that's what we have been working with for, I don't know, several weeks already. Right now, I think we've finished unit 4, so there are going to be 10 of them. And even though it is really difficult, a lot of people criticize authors of the books, right? And it's so easy to criticize them. When you start creating all of those tasks, when you start thinking about the core vocabulary which you need to save in one unit and then revise it in this next unit, then you need to think about the activities you need to come up with so that all of those vocabulary items, grammar items were used effectively. You understand that it's difficult because you need to think about the core vocabulary, the core grammar structures. Then, of course, you think about the tasks so that you don't repeat them. Like, okay, last lesson we had word formation. Now we need to have something else, but this something else has to repeat the vocabulary from the previous unit. So, of course, it means that we rewrite a lot of things, we adapt a lot of things. I mean, we use authentic sources such as, I don't know, Guardian or Economist. We use articles to create a course. And whenever it comes to finding this very article, that's one article you need to use for the unit. Nobody you have to read 20.
How does that work in terms of copyright? Do you have to pay a contribution to the Guardian if you're going to publish it?
Only when we sell it. Yeah, but we don't sell it. Okay. In the future, if we decide to publish the book, and who knows, God only knows, right? Which God? Which God? Yeah.
The computer God? Yeah. Only the internet knows.
So it's difficult. We don't really know. But if we agreed that it would be a nice choice, so of course then we'll have to write to the Guardian or to the Economist. But I don't really think that will be much of a problem because most of the time these media, they are more than willing. Because
if we're public record, surely you can just take that text wholesale.
But yeah, we can take it, but we can't sell it.
Okay.
So it's written there. Yeah. So we read through all of the materials to make sure that we they do not file a case against us in the future, right? So we decided to play safe.
So at the moment, you're not looking at publishing necessarily. You're dipping your toe in the water of textbook authorship.
Yeah, but that's our first try, and then that will be something to work with in the future, because we know that the book can be good, the book can be bad, but with every second edition, it becomes better and better. So, and just talking about the time spent on each unit, and remember that we spent more than a week on first unit. We were thinking about the layout, about the materials. With every second unit, it becomes faster. So there is some clarity in our head. We understand what we need, and it becomes well, sort of easier. I can't say that it's easy because still each unit takes a couple of days to prepare, and then a couple of more to edit everything, change something. And then we can have like a lesson using these materials, and we understand that something didn't really go right. So what we thought would go smoothly didn't go this way. So we need to change something. So it means that with every day it becomes better and more, well, I'd say that it's more pleasant to work with, because just imagine, I just found this, I found myself thinking with upstream, for example, whenever we have a lesson, we can have just one exercise on page 8, then one exercise page 12, then we jump back to page 9, then we go to page 33.
This is one thing I was going to ask you about, because so let's take something simple like layout, pure layout. You would think in theory that would be really simple to do, because just make it logical and make it so that everything's in a logical place. And but logical for who? Because it really depends on the teacher. Because, for example, some people hate when you have to, as you say, skip pages and you've got the vocabulary here and the grammar's here. But personally, I really like that. I like it when the grammar is at the back of the book and that the vocabulary is after that, and you've got a grammar bank and a vocab bank, or a vocab resource at the back of the book, which you can refer to and you can use it for revision. And it's like its own little separate thing. And I don't like it when the vocab is just all over the page, sort of, like Cutting Edge is a good example of a book that does that a lot. But having said that, some people are the opposite to me and some people are in between. So how do you account for all of those different styles, let's call them,
well, the thing is that again, I sent you the unit, one of the units, and if you look through that, normally it is well, not normally, we always design it this way. So you have this vocabulary, then you have an exercise where you practice this very vocabulary. So you don't really need to look at the back of the book to practice some vocab and then return to the beginning of the book. Technically speaking, you can start with exercise 1, then do exercise 2, then do exercise 3, then do exercise 4. You can go in order and you have a ready-made lesson. You don't really need to prepare, technically speaking, because all of the questions, additional questions, for example, I do like Upstream. Upstream is my favorite book out there. But what this book lacks would be this communicative approach. So you have an exercise and then you don't know what to do with this exercise. You'll have to jump 3 pages ahead, and then you'll find an exercise like a speaking activity where you can use the vocabulary from the previous page. Here we change it. So we have, let's say, 10 words. Then you use these 10 words to practice something. Then you use those chunks you have created using those 10 words in the next exercise. That exercise will give you, let's say, 5 chunks, which you can use in the next task. So, and it creates this, let's say, domino effect where one task becomes the other and the other and the other and the other.
Right, and it snowballs into
yeah,
practice. Interesting. Well, I'm pretty shocked. Because I thought the first book that you wrote would be a book of spells.
Well, I have that one, but it's illegal to publish such books in Russia.
Well, thank you for sending me the advanced copy of your book of spells. Available in all good witching and wizarding schools now. Use with caution. Well, I've got to run to work pretty soon. So, well, obviously this is work, but I've got to run to my other work and go and I've got a meeting with the Saudis. Wish me luck. Thanks very much for coming on the show. And yeah, I'm only publishing Campcast every fortnight at the moment, because I got some feedback saying that the episodes just pile up so quickly and people don't have time enough to listen to. Because yeah, we've been going for about an hour, just under today. And some episodes, like I did one with Yulia Surevigina, and that one was like nearly 2 hours. She likes a chat, does old Yulia. So yeah, we're doing only once a fortnight. So yeah, this will come out in a few weeks, but I'll let you know.
Okay,
I'll send you an advance copy so you can check that there's no nothing controversial in there.
Okay.
Okay.
Deep,
Thanks
deep,
very much.
deep stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah, see you.
It's always a pleasure,
you
never a
one day.
chore. And I will see you when I see you, good sir. Bye-bye now.
Yeah, goodbye.